Well, this is breaking right now as we speak. It has kicked off big time outside the Iranian embassy in London. We're working on getting some footage for you, but from what we've been able to see anyway, due to our sources on the ground sending us videos that they've taken themselves, it looks incredibly nasty. Big clashes between police and some people who are protesting there this evening. I'm seeing pictures of people bloodied and bruised, and it's an incredibly volatile situation. Obviously, what has been happening recently, in light of everything that's been going on with the Ayatollah in Iran, is that people who want the Ayatollah out have taken to the streets outside the embassy and calling for him to go, trying to ramp up the pressure as well on the British government to do something about it and to maybe be a little bit more proactive. Well, Christo, you've been looking at some of this footage as well. Like I said, we're working on getting it to you, so do bear with us with that. But, Christo, what are you seeing?
And that's... A lot of people online are making the point. So there seems to have been some sort of clashes between protesters, people who are protesting the extreme Islamic regime in Iran by protesting outside that regime's embassy in London, and clashes between those protesters and the Met Police. Now, some people are saying, look, the Met Police have been really heavy-handed. They've been, using their batons. They've been very heavy-handed. Of course, the Met Police not here to defend themselves. They may have a different story as to what has gone on, but also a lot of people online making the point that these people are protesting an extreme Islamic regime, yet seem to have experienced, according to people here, a very heavy-handed approach by the Met Police. However, people who have been protesting who are pro-Palestinian on the streets in recent months and indeed the last couple of years seem to have been given a free pass by the police. So a lot of people making the point online, why, when you're protesting extreme Islam, are you getting a heavy-handed approach, but when you're not, you seem to be allowed to do what you like. Again, Met Police not here to defend themselves. They may say that it's different to what we're seeing.
Can I just say, I'm looking at some really quite bad footage here, actually, of what the police have got a man on the floor. We don't know what he's done, OK, so there is that. We don't know what he's done, but I'm looking at... This has been sent to me by someone who is there now. Again, we're trying to work on getting all this up for you and everything like that. Just battering a man on the floor with their, would you call it a trunch or whatever? And
one of these people looks to be someone who is elderly, a 70-year-old man. A lot of footage of the police, again, apparently being very heavy-handed with him. He's saying, apparently, I can't breathe, and those sorts of things. But I'm seeing this footage of this 70-year-old man repeatedly.
So that's going on right now. OK, that's going on right now outside the Iranian embassy. We will going to stay on this, all right, but I'm going to go to Bill Rammell now, because, Bill, you actually do have some really big breaking news as well from what's going on actually in Iran.
I do, but before I say that, let me just say a word about the protest that's taking place. We're party to something called the Vienna Convention, which entails protection for embassies regardless of conflict between countries. And normally we've been on the receiving end of countries abusing that, like Russia. So there is some context for why the police should, regardless of what we think about the Iranian regime, protect the embassy. However, I'm a member of the Labour Foreign Policy Group, and I received a report just before we came on air tonight. I hasten to add, this is not verified yet, but it's a credible report to me, and it says the city's prison is overcrowded with detained and arrested protesters. The court halls are filled with families of detainees, and no lawyers are being allowed to defend those who have been arrested. People believe that some kind of toxic chemical substance has been used against protesters, causing some of the injured to lose their lives days later. The number of those killed and injured is very high. If that is true, I think that's extraordinarily concerning.
Wow. So just to clarify on that then, Bill, the information that you seem to be getting there is from a credible source, so that the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah, might have used some sort of chemical weapon against their own people, against protesters, and we are now seeing a delayed reaction to that then. So we're a few days on from that, a couple of days on from that, and now we're starting to see loss of life as a result of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's history in this part of the region. You look at Saddam Hussein, who used gases against 5,000 people in Halabja and murdered them brutally. And I feel this has got real echoes of that.
Well, and where is our red line on this? Where is Trump's red line on this? I suppose that's the more pressing question, really, given that he would unquestionably be the one who would launch the first strike, if there is one. If this is true, no reason to doubt it. If this is true, that chemical weapons have been used on the Iranian people by the regime, I think all of that might be the sign to do something.
But the key question is, what do you do? You know, because it's very different externally, and you know, I was part of it in government. Foreign interventions sometimes have adverse consequences.
I just think it's just got a nightmare written all over it. And the thing is, if Trump goes in, you know, are we looking at what are the consequences? Are we looking, you know, it's very, very volatile in the Middle East in so many aspects of the Middle East. Are we looking at, you know, a monumental escalation towards World War III? I don't know. It's terrifying. And what upsets me, and I think we always need to remember that in the middle of all this are people and families and kids, and you know, it's just heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just to emphasise that breaking line is that it appears from credible sources that the Iranian authorities may have used chemical weapons against their own people. That's going to take us a while to digest, I think, really, and exactly what that means and the death toll, potential death toll, and what we're seeing. But at some point, Iran is going to properly turn its connections back on. We're going to have people being able to bring out videos and pictures of all of the horror that has undoubtedly happened in the last few days there. And the world is going to see it. And we've got that US fleet who's apparently on its way to Iran. It's going to take about a week to get there, supposedly. Yeah. You know, at what point are we going to say, right, actually, that's it? Can I just bring you a breaking line, actually, as well, from what's going on outside the Iranian embassy here in Britain? Ugly, ugly scenes taking place outside there. Clashes between anti-Ayatollah demonstrators and the police. Accusations of the police being extremely heavy-handed. We've now got a statement from the Metropolitan Police. During the ongoing protest at the Iranian embassy this evening, a protester illegally accessed private property and climbed across multiple balconies onto the roof of the embassy and removed a flag. He's since been arrested by officers on suspicion of criminal damage, trespass and diplomatic property and assaulting police. A Section 35 order has been imposed as a result of ongoing disorder, including missiles being thrown at officers. Several officers have suffered injuries. So that's the Metropolitan Police's line on all of this. The footage, which again we will get to very, very soon, don't worry, just show the, you know, heavy-handed police tactics, I would argue, but as Bill says, those diplomatic buildings have extra special protection.
But do that. Sorry, I mean, I respect that. But a lot of people are making this point on your say, and I understand why they're making it. Does the diplomatic protection of a building justify? And again, it's what we think we're seeing in these videos, potentially like an elderly person being held down and battered by the police. And I think it's about a question of proportion. And again, you know, we need to be careful because we need to see, you know, there's not a lot of context going on at the moment, but it does look like, and Patrick, I think you've seen a lot of this footage as well.
I've got a picture in front of me here of an elderly man with a battered head, blood coming from his nose, bruising all over his forehead. I mean, I'm telling you, that is not a good look for the police.
And that's abhorrent. These are people who are demonstrating against Islamic extremism, and it just plays into everything we were talking about earlier on about what is potentially two-tier in this country.
There's that contrast between the way... So recently, in fact, it was just a week or so ago, there were a load of pro-Palestine activists that protest outside an Israeli restaurant, just openly calling for the restaurant to go, harassing people who were going in it. And there was that footage of the police standing around not doing a lot, in fact, doing nothing. And then you've got this now.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, this is a live, ongoing incident, and we need to get to the bottom of what has happened and find out the truth. But I also think in terms of Western attitudes, and particularly of the Trump administration, there needs to be uniformity of response. And it's not just in Iran. You know, in Syria at the moment, the new regime is murdering Kurds, and the Trump administration is just giving them a free pass, and it's really concerning.
It is, but this is what's happening here is on London streets, and a lot of people, again, on your say, are saying, look, they don't recognise the Met Police's version of what's happened, and that someone was on the first floor and they actually fell off the first floor whilst trying, I think, to change the flag from the Islamic regime's flag to the original Iranian flag, and that actually then the police set upon them. Again, that is in contrast to what the police are saying, but a lot of people are making that point.
Yeah. OK. All right. Well, look, we are working on getting some of this footage. I think we might actually be about to bring it. Yeah, there you go. Brilliant. OK, so this is outside the Iranian embassy in London. This is some of the footage that we've got. A line, a cordon of the Metropolitan Police there. You've got people waving the, some would argue, what would you say, the original Iranian flag, the old Iranian flag. Police appearing to move in on the crowd there. Now, this was sent in to us a few moments ago by somebody who was at the scene. So it's taking place, and this comes after there have been arrests. The Metropolitan Police say that several officers have suffered injuries. Missiles have been thrown at them. The other side of this are pretty adamant that they say that the police have acted in their words here, and I'm quoting a reporter who's on the ground. They say the police have acted disgracefully. But again, obviously, the police are saying that this is very much a response to an ongoing situation. But yeah, scenes there outside the Iranian embassy in London. Right, we'll get more for you. We'll get more for you as we get it. But this is the breaking story of the night. And again, I don't want to lose sight here as well, given what we're seeing there, of what actually we think has maybe happened in Iran, which is that the Iranian regime has now been accused of using chemical weapons against its own people. We've now got some more video of you. I'm going to bring in Ben Leo, who is, of course, stateside for us, reporting for us tonight, doing a show, hosting from there tonight for the Late Show Live from midnight until 2 a.m. But I think whilst he's talking, we might be able to play you some footage of what's going on as well. Yeah, look, Ben, it's a bit of a developing story, this, obviously. You've been to a few protests in your time, mostly of the pro-Palestine variety. I don't know if you had much of a chance to check out what's going on here, but pretty concerning the way that it's unfolding on the streets of London at the moment between protesters and police outside the Iranian embassy.
Yeah, I'm just watching live footage now as we speak. I'm learning about this as you guys are and the viewers back home. It looks pretty tasty indeed, is an understatement. I heard Bill's point about the sanctity of foreign embassies, fine, but still, as you mentioned, Patrick, before the break, the clip particularly of that old guy, he's not old, but older guy being bashed around is slightly concerning. I'm just watching live footage now. There's more people being bundled to the ground by cops. It's the kind of thing, and look, I hear the Met Police's response, and I'm sure they'll elaborate on what's happened shortly, but it's the kind of thing you see in other countries. And as you mentioned, maybe, Patrick, you don't really see this kind of response to the likes of the pro-Palestine protesters who marched down the streets calling for globalise the Intifada and all the other nonsense. So, yeah, it's very concerning. Actually, speaking of Iran, Patrick, I was at a press conference today in Washington, D.C., held by the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Raza Pahlavi, who basically was telling the world that he is ready to take over should the Islamic regime fall. He thinks it will fall. He said it will fall quicker if America gets involved and President Trump intervenes, which he's calling for. But he said if America doesn't intervene, then at some point the Islamist despots will be out anyway. But he said this will be wrapped up far sooner if President Trump gets involved. He said he's ready to take over. He's got a transition plan in place. He says he has the support of the Iranian people. And as I said, he called for the US intervention. And he also I asked him a question actually, which we'll show during the Late Show Live. We've got a clip of it. He also called on countries all around the world to prescribe the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a prescribed terrorist organisation, which, Patrick, in the UK, we currently don't do.
Yeah, we don't do, which is ridiculous, really, I think, when you look at some of the other people that we're prescribing as well. You know, what can the justification be prescribing some of those groups and not the IRGC? I mean, they're the biggies, aren't they, really, when it comes to it? Yeah, it looks as though it's going to be, you know, a pretty ongoing situation outside the Iranian embassy for quite a while. We're getting a lot through online. Ben, can I just ask you, while we keep those footage on the screen, though, have you got a couple of other topics for us as well tonight?
Yeah, getting stuck into Iran. Elon Musk has had a big row with Michael O'Leary of Ryanair. Basically, Michael O'Leary said Elon Musk knows nothing about aviation. Musk replied by calling for Ryanair to sack him. Elsewhere, there's this mega poll released from the Telegraph today, maybe suggesting and showing the reason why Starmer cancelled those local elections, because this poll shows that reform would have absolutely swept all those areas that have been cancelled. And also ICE, the immigration authorities over here, this side of the pond, they've had a crack at the BBC, because the BBC, as they do in the UK with Welsh choir boys, they've described a illegal criminal migrant in Minneapolis as a very good, well-behaved Minneapolis man, quote unquote.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, that's just par for the course, isn't it? You know, we've had the Welsh choir boy, now we've got this. So there we go. Ben, look, thank you very, very much. Ben Leo there, who will be locked and loaded from midnight until 2 a.m. for us here on GB News. Let's just stick with this story. What you're looking at here now is scenes outside the Iranian embassy in London. Clashes, it appears, between protesters and police. Look, what the Metropolitan Police are claiming is that there was an individual who climbed the embassy, tried to remove the Iranian flag, as in the Ayatollah's flag, obviously, and replace it with the older Iranian flag of the lion and the sun. And that was tantamount to an alleged criminal damage, etc. They've then tried to arrest that person. What they then say is that missiles, objects have been thrown at police officers have suffered injuries. There is very much another side to this, and that is the side that is currently doing the rounds on social media. And there is some really pretty ugly stuff coming out at the moment, which appears to show people battered, bloodied, bruised, being hit with truncheons by the police as well. Question marks, aren't there, about the scale of the policing there and how aggressive they are. And whilst Benleo was talking there, I know, Christo, you're with us here. You've been having a look online, haven't you? Have you got any more information for us?
Well, I've got a couple more sort of points of view, actually. You're quite right. The Met Police are saying that this was the case and that they were sort of essentially protecting the embassy. But a gentleman called Eddie on Your Say says that they've been watching it, all of this live stream all night, and that there were hundreds of police, not very many protesters, that they weighed in mob-handed and they hit two elderly men, one of whom was attempting to ensure good order. The lad who tried to change the flag, so he acknowledges that someone tried to get onto the embassy but fell off the ledge, and then it was the police that then charged onto him. However, a guy called Alan has also been looking at the footage, saying actually the police, it was their duty to prevent an individual climbing onto the embassy, and it was they who came under attack with missiles and are policing that. So it's still a bit of a hazy picture, but certainly I agree with you. The pictures we're seeing online look like the police are being quite heavy-handed.
There's going to be a massive debrief of this well into the night, I think, isn't there, really? And people are, I think, Bill, going to be drawing the obvious comparison here, which is that the way that the police have handled certain other protests and other things that we've seen when it's come to, pro-Palestine, etc., people climbing on monuments, desecrating them, spraying paint over buildings, versus this.
Except there is the point I made, the Vienna Convention, and it is about protecting embassies regardless of the country. And why is that important? Because some people might say, what's an international agreement got to do with this? It's about trying to ensure that whatever the conflict, whatever's taking place, diplomats can keep talking to each other. Yeah. And we've been on the receiving end. Those so-and-sos in Iran actually closed our embassy in Tehran. The Russians attacked and closed down the British Council in Moscow.
OK.